Welcome to Discover Barnstable, the official podcast of the Town of Barnstable, a podcast where you can meet the people who steward the programs and services that connect us to our quality of life here in the Town of Barnstable. We invite you to join the conversation as we navigate municipal government and our community pathways to help you discover Barnstable. I'm Sarah Beal-Fletcher, and on this episode of Discover Barnstable, we are joined by Director of Natural Resources and Sandy Neck Beach Park Manager, Nina Coleman. Nina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Nina has been with the Town of Barnstable for 21 years, and she has a slew of degrees. She has her AA from Cape Cod Community College, her Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Sciences from UMass Amherst, and she has her Master's in Natural Resource Conservation from UMass Amherst as well, and she's from Vermont. So today we're going to discuss the long-term coastal resiliency project for Sandy Neck Beach Park, which is it's been good. You've got working towards this for quite a long time. So let's start with what exactly Sandy Neck is, because for some people, they might not understand the intricacies of what Sandy Neck Beach Park is as a resource, as a natural environment.
Yeah, Sandy Neck is an extremely unique property for a town to own. If you include the marsh, it's 4,300 acres, and it's a barrier beach system, which means that there's a marsh and a harbor behind the barrier beach. It is on par with the National Seashore, with even state properties. It's a very large, intact wildlands that hasn't, for the most part, been developed. And it's all preserved as a conservation area. And it's owned and operated by the Town of Barnstable. Again, very unusual to have such a large marquee property under the stewardship of a town. It is also an area of critical environmental concern, so it's a state designation, which provides it multiple protections for all the attributes that it provides the town, for stormwater management, and for endangered species and wildlife habitat. We do have 8 endangered species associated with the beach. Most people know that we have piping plovers and least terns, and diamondback terrapins, but we have a number of other plants and animals associated with the beach as well. So an absolutely spectacular property, and it's really a pleasure and an honor to be the voice of Sandy Neck for 21 years.
Yes, it's an absolutely amazing piece of property that the town is so lucky to have. And let's talk about the plan. So we're talking about long-term coastal resiliency, which goes along with, this has been in discussion since 2013. So what does that mean? What is long-term coastal resiliency? We want to make sure that people are understanding, what Sandy Neck is and why this is so important to protect this resource.
Yeah, so coastal resiliency is a phrase that's used quite a bit these days. And for Sandy Neck, it's really referring to the developed section of Sandy Neck. So what we're trying to preserve is our infrastructure. Mm-hmm. The rest of the beach is, for the most part, undeveloped, and it's a wide beach. So there is an opportunity for that beach to recede or erode backwards without it affecting human infrastructure. But in front of our parking lot, it's a fixed structure. And so what's been happening is that with these big storms, we're getting closer and closer to the edge of the dune of the cliff down into the water. So we need to take our infrastructure and reconfigure it so that the property can withstand these large storms. So what we did back in 2015 was we started the process of looking at our infrastructure, and we had a study done where it was determined where the 50-year line would be. Where is the edge of the dune in 50 years? And we need to put all of our infrastructure behind that line. Fortunately, the bathhouse is already behind that line, but clearly our parking lots aren't. And so that process went on for a while, and now we're in the portion of the project where we're trying to redevelop that and figure out what's the best way to pull that parking lot back, create additional safety, like traffic flow, improve traffic flow, improve some of the management challenges with Sandy Neck. And while we were looking at the parking lot, all over these number of years, we started having these massive storms that were flooding the gatehouse, which there's pictures of that. Our gatehouse was, twice in 1 year was completely flooded. So we added to that evaluation, what should we do with our gatehouse, our roads, our access trail? Let's look at the whole property and make this sustainable for 50 years.
Right.
So ultimately, what we're trying to do is pull that parking lot back, move the gatehouse to higher ground.
Yeah, I would say the gatehouse now is probably is it basically the lowest point?
Yeah, you really couldn't select a lower point.
Yeah.
So the gatehouse was built in 1991. And if you think about where she sits, it's a direct arrow from the marsh to the gatehouse. So any winds out of the east or northeast is going to push all of those floodwaters directly to an X, which is the gatehouse.
Right.
So we need to move that, move her to higher ground. Look at the trails. Look at the road. How can we? There's certain infrastructure that tides can come in and out of, right? And so those are the areas that we can just buffer up. So it's been a very long process. It's a very political process. It's very expensive. It's very complicated. It takes a lot of partners. And so we've certainly been at it for a number of years.
Yeah. And you've had a lot of public meetings where the community could come out and kind of look at what you're planning or give their ideas or suggestions or kind of see how the plan is progressing and provide feedback. I think one of the things is that lower parking lot is probably... Definitely. Sometimes you have a storm come in and you can't even use half the parking lot because it's underwater. So that's going to definitely be moved back. And you said that the bathhouse is in a safe space, it's in an okay space, the 50-year line?
Yeah. So the 50-year line is not just where the dune will be. It's where, so you have to look at where a 100-year storm surge is going to be in 50 years, right? So, so we wanted... So the bathhouse will be out of the 100-year storm in 50 years. So it's a little more layered than that. But yes, the lower lot is a mess. And I get a lot of feedback about, the potholes and what we call the Sandy Neck Lake down there, which is freshwater.
Yep.
And we have recognized for years that it needs to be reconfigured, reevaluated, but we knew this project was up and coming. So that parking lot would be moved back considerably so that it would be even. The front line of it would be even with the bathhouse, and then we'd have a really lovely stormwater system put in there that includes a rain garden, which is near and dear to my heart, with some plantings that improve wildlife habitat. And then the upper lot it also needs that front nose of it needs to be shaved off because that's within that 50
It's right
year.
up against that dune, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then as you move down the property, the off-road mouth of the off-road trail floods now. So I've been here 21 years, and as you mentioned, and it's like there's a huge difference in terms of these storms from 21 years ago to now.
Yeah.
And I would have never expected that the access trail would flood. But I've watched the water come in there, like Bay of Fundy, like flying in there with eddies and everything.
Yeah.
So that has a direct conduit in there. So we need to move the air compressor shack. We need to look at the way that the access trail is configured for safety. And this is another really exciting part for me, is to actually improve the air up, air down so that it's not the mess that it is at the end of the evening, and get people out of the trail so they can air up safely. And so why not address that while we're moving the air compressor, while we're reconfiguring all the other structures that are there.
Right. If you're going to do this and you have the opportunity to make these upgrades and changes, you're going to do it the best possible way to make everything better. You're not just going to piecemeal it, kind of fix things here and there as you go. It's like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. This is going to be a big project. How far the project's about? The plan for the project is about what you'd say 90%?
90%. Yeah. Yeah, 90% done. So I could go into like what we did for the outreach. So there's been this the evolution of this plan, the final plan, I love. But it took a very long time. It took a lot of brainstorming. It took a lot of like, you know, when you go in a circle, you're like, what if we do this? And then that won't work and that won't work. And back you come to the, you know, back to the solution. But we have to go through all of those iterations to get to the right spot, because nothing is easy on Sandy Neck.
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
You know, we're working with so many constraints in terms of, it's not just like we can design whatever we want. We need to work within what's permittable.
Right.
So every square inch of Sandy Neck, you know, that's developed, that's all we have for playroom. We don't have like other square feet. We can restore square feet and take other square feet, but we can't make it that much bigger.
You have a footprint to work with,
and you can slide it around, but you can't increase.
You can't go outside of that.
Yeah,
footprint.
thank you. That's a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
So back in the day, we did a number of alternative analysis that sort of was shelved for a while. When we came out of the gate for this one that we're on right now, we had 3 alternatives that we brought forth in the spring of last year to the public. And the reconfiguration was the selected one. It was the most permittable. It was the cheapest long term. We did look at other things like putting sand on the beach over and over, which is what we've been doing, and that's much more expensive.
And doesn't nearly last as long as you think it would.
Well, because as the shoreline retreats and you have the sand like sticking out like a sore thumb, kind of asking to be hit by the storms. But that needed to be vetted. That's the thing about doing the full circle. So it's not just in-house, the professionals, and looking at the options. It's like the public needs to understand and go through those iterations, be like, oh yeah, you're right. This is really the only solution that's permittable and fundable.
Right.
So we ended up with the alternative. We vetted it with the public, and we came up with a like reconfiguration. I call it reconfiguration, not retreat, because somehow retreat got to be a bad word. But we have enough room on the property to reconfigure. And so then that sort of rough plan of a reconfiguration with a couple of different ways of doing that was then brought back to the public in the summer of last year. And we got some really good feedback. And we took the feedback. We were thinking about moving the trail, the access trail, and we ended up leaving it because that's what the community wanted. And then that plan then was refined. And this spring we brought our final where we're like, this is the plantings, and this is the lighting, and this is the striping, and this is where the crosswalk, like those levels of things, which is what the community wants to know, right?
Oh yeah, those are the details that they're looking for.
They're looking for like, where do I park? Where do I cross safely? How do I get to the trail? How do I get to the ORV beach? And so we had really taken it down to that 90% this spring. It was in March, and that was brought to the public, and it was really a solid plan, and you were at that meeting. People liked it, and that was extremely rewarding because we had really thought that out.
Yeah.
And so that's the final. It's available. Again, it's 90%, so not final.
Right.
We need to get into those little details where they're construction level. We're not quite there yet, but so we have this great plan. If you go to Sandy Neck, there's flags all over the place with stakes, and that's like staking it all out for all the permitting that we're in right now.
Right. That was going to be my next question. So the final 10% is the final construction details, the permitting process, and all that stuff, correct?
Yeah, we've got most of our permits. We have our conservation permit through the Conservation Commission. We're still working on our natural heritage endangered species permit, which is a difficult one. It's not plovers. Plovers aren't the issue for this. It's the spadefoot toad.
Right.
And so some of those flags all over the place, say toad on them. That's our mitigation and minimization strategy that, again, we haven't gotten the permit, but we're presenting this as a way to reduce the effect on the spadefoot toads is to put up fencing and then go out and do sweeps and actually remove the toads out of the construction area. And so that's what all of that is up there. Everything that says toad is actually going to be a little silt fencing. And then we'll be out in the middle of the night with the headlights on and collecting toads and sticking them on the other side of the fencing. So I look forward to that. That's going to be fun.
That actually does sound really fun.
It really does, yeah. You should come with.
I will do that. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that where they can find out the information about the plan. If you go to the Town of Barnstable website, scroll about 3/4 of the way down, you can click where it says Sandy Neck. And on that Sandy Neck page, there is a really great interactive, it's got maps, it's got pictures, it has video, it has the public outreach videos if people want to go back and see how those discussions went. And it really lays everything out in a really interesting way. So definitely if you're looking for more information, you want to see the pictures and the videos and things we've discussed, that's a great place to go.
Oh, it's so good because this stuff is like years and years. You know, it's hard to summarize it in a way that's like manageable to understand because it's so much information. And our consultant put together, it's called a story map, which was a new word to me. And so, like you said, it's layers. So you can sort of look at it really quickly and have a look at the final plan. Maybe that's all you want to do. Or maybe you want to dig in deeper. And all of those public meetings that we were speaking about are on there. And you can really get into the weeds if you'd like to. The technical paper is on there, and that is more in the weeds than you probably ever would want to be, but it's really, you know, what you want is what you get on that website. It's very good, and it's on the Sandy Neck homepage.
Great. Is there anything about this project that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure that our listeners are aware of?
What timeline is a lot of questions, and funding. Are the two things that I think are generally come up. So Sandy Neck is an enterprise account, and so the goal is to not have general fund or taxpayer money used for this project. It's extremely, fundable through all these grants. And we have a number of grants out there. In other words, we've applied for grants and we're waiting for responses back. So the intent is to fund it via grants and then through the enterprise account. So that's one question that comes up a lot. And then timeline, because we have these grants out right now and we don't have answers yet, we're not looking at this winter as a construction period.
Right.
We would need to have all the grant funding in place and then go to town council and look to allocate the rest of it. So we're still a ways away. It would have been great to do a part of it this winter, and we can do it in phases too. So we're just chipping away at the 100, getting the plans to 100%, a number of additional permits, and then the grant funding. So that's kind of where we're at this really complex project.
Right. That's great. And I think doing it right, not quickly, is a good way because you want this to last and really have the effect that people are looking for, to be able to still access Sandy Neck like they've always been able to, not kind of take that away, but make sure it's good and we'll be there for years to come.
Yes. And I will say, another question I get, it's not less parking, it's a little bit more parking. So we heard that loud and clear. It's like
we're not losing spaces.
We're gaining a little bit, but that definitely was one of the feedback we got from the community. So
that's great.
It's a great project. I'm very excited about it. It really makes me happy. It's a lot of people. DPW has been involved. Amber Unruh is amazing. DPW has been extremely supportive of this project. Sandy Neck Board and really the whole town has been working towards this for a number of years. And I'm looking forward to it happening.
Yeah, wonderful. So before we wrap it up, we do have our bonus question for you.
You didn't give me a chance to
it's an easy
review
one.
it.
It's an easy one. What is your favorite season?
Oh, fall on Sandy Neck is ridiculously beautiful.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Yeah, everybody who lives on the Cape says the fall. Sparkly, sparkly water, which is my thing. whales breaching, it's our turtle stranding season. The beach is busy, but everybody's, it's wide open. So people are fishing, people are happy. It feeds my soul.
Yeah.
The fall feeds my soul.
It's a great place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Nina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending time with us and listening to Discover Barnstable, the official podcast of the Town of Barnstable. We hope you found a new understanding of how your municipal government works for you and our community. Be sure to drop us a line at podcast@town.barnstable.ma.us and let us know what you would like to learn next. Until next time, go Discover Barnstable.